I get phone calls every couple months from someone with a dream, and they say, I want to build a thing, whether or not that's from a strip mall to a coffee shop. And we had those conversations, and I asked them, okay, well, do you have an architect? Do you have a GC? Who are you working with? And it's so funny. I get this comment so frequently is, well, I don't have any of those things, and I don't really know where to start, but I know engineers know things. So I typed in engineer near me. You guys came up. I called you. You're the first person to actually pick up your phone or call me back. So here we are. And that's always really fun because then we get to help build the teams and make referrals and make recommendations, which is really big for how we try to grow our name in the market.
Welcome back to another episode of Breaking Ground, a construction innovation podcast. I'm your host, Dagan Davis, and today we have as our guest Daniel McCaulley. He is the founder and principal of Ultimus Engineering. Daniel, thanks for joining us.
Hey, morning, Dagan. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So we'll dive right into Ultimus Engineering. What do you guys do? And any other information you want to add to that?
Yeah, thanks. At Ultimus Engineering, we create engineering solutions to build better communities. And that's a mouthful, but it's been a mission statement of ours that has evolved a little bit over time. At first, it was just we created solutions to build better companies. Like, well, we're not really building better companies. There's more to it than that. And as we've evolved, we actually didn't even start in the construction space, and we can get into that how we've evolved as a company over time. But what we've really found is that it's the users of these spaces that we design, whether it's the water parks or the apartment complexes or even the coffee shop. It's the communities that make all of this possible, that arguably at the end of the day are really the ones paying our paychecks. If people don't attend or go to the coffee shop and buy the cup of coffee, the owners can't have the building, the developers can't build it, and the architects can't design it, and we can't do the engineering. So with every project that we take on, it's more about who are the people that are actually using these spaces. And then through that, we do have three distinct engineering divisions within the company. We have MEP, Aquatics, and Structural. And those, in many cases, are able to offer a really wonderful turnkey engineering package to all things construction.
Okay, great. And then so who is your ideal client?
Our major client are architects. We also work very frequently with general contractors in a design build type environment where the GC is the one out there looking to build the design teams. But between those two, those serve our primary client base.
Okay. And then I guess you talked about the beginning and starting the company. What led you to getting into owning your own engineering firm?
Yeah, really, I like to say that kind of starts 30 years ago. I was one of those kids that my mom couldn't get me out of the house enough. I guess I had too much energy. And if there was an application for it, my name was on it. And as I tried different things, everything from rocket camp to football, I tend to gravitate more towards the athletic background. And I played basically every sport under the sun. And that was really the spark of having a very competitive nature. And it doesn't matter if it's on the gridiron or if we're sitting at lunch and you're like, hey man, I bet you can't eat 50 chicken nuggets faster than that guy. My response is always like, well, let's try. Let's see what happens. So that competitive drive led me to, well, ultimately what drove me to select engineering, which was, hey, let's just think the hardest degree I can think of. And engineering seems difficult and it doesn't take 15 years to get a medical license. So engineering is a good second option there. But as I got into the engineering world, I discovered that engineers generally aren't great communicators. They're really great technically in their craft, but generally you're not going to go to an engineer when you want to go grab a cup of coffee or go see a sporting event or just hang out. They're just not fun people to hang out with typically. I found that there is a small collection of us people who do have the ability to be technically minded, but also relational with other folks. And as I developed in my professional career prior to starting this company, I found that to be more and more true. And so through a series of, I spent some time in oil and gas, some industrial manufacturing, some manufacturing for the construction industry, which is kind of my segue into creating this company. The idea came about really over COVID. It was very early in COVID. We were all doing a lot of soul searching, I think. And my my Holy Spirit moment was, hey, this is the next challenge. This is the next big thing. Can I start a company? Because at that time I'd had a master's degree in mechanical engineering. I have an MBA. I have a PE. So all these pieces of paper and all this experiential uh, development over the years where I felt like I could run a company, but I didn't know how to start one. And so that's kind of a whole other topic in of itself. But essentially, it sort of stemmed from the idea that everything is engineered, whether or not it's buildings or macaroons or packaging. Everything needs engineering. And so if everything needs engineering, then shouldn't people be afforded the opportunity to work with engineers that they actually enjoy working with and can be communicative, and can be reliable, and can pick up the phone when you call them? So that was the reason why I started this company. It wasn't just because I loved construction, which I now have a much better appreciation for than I did a little over 5 years ago. But the idea was, can I start a company that offers a technical service that everybody needs, but can we do it in a way that people are not used to getting? And that's really the backbone of what we do.
Okay. And then I know you mentioned this earlier, but what got you guys, more and more into construction over the years?
Yeah, good question. So when I started the company, I was going to go back to my roots of oil and gas and industrial product design. And I was really only about 6 months in when I got a phone call from an old vice president who had also previously been in oil and gas, who had followed me, and we kept in touch. And he called me one day and said, "Hey, I'm starting this new venture. I've got this residential GC. I know you have your own engineering firm, and I've got this load bearing wall in this home I'm trying to remodel. Do you know how to do this, or do you have anybody on your team that could help me evaluate this and come up with a way to remodel this home?" And I found someone in my network, a structural engineer who could assist. And I sent it to him, and he goes, "Man, you know what? I'll do that for you for 1,200 bucks." And I was like, well, if I'm going to be managing this, I should make a few dollars. So I called the GC back and I said, "Man, I'll do this for you for 1,500 bucks." And he said, "Great." And I said, "Great." And it was the easiest $300 I ever made. And that was really like the first construction project we ever did. And then there became more and more opportunities like that. He kept coming back. He made referrals to some other people. And that was how the construction division grew. It grew from structural, then into MEP in a very similar situation. The Aquatics division came on a little bit differently, but essentially it came about because engineers weren't reliable. Engineers weren't responsive. And it's the responsiveness and it's the communication that is the biggest bottleneck within this industry. And so that's what we built over time, was just that it found like it was much easier to find work in the construction environment than it was in industrial product design. It's a larger industry, and we just really went where the business took us.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know we've been talking a lot about, if there's viewers in, watching this show, through the episodes, there's been a constant theme of, if you're not in construction, get in construction. You can make good money, you can have a lifelong career with it, and that's really what we like to push here. And then, we're doing our very, very small part of trying to push more innovation into the industry, and it'll come eventually. And it's already here, in certain areas. And so that's cool. We'll get to the innovation side eventually. But you're based in Dallas, correct?
Yes, we're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, Plano, small suburb, small, about 300,000 people, just north of downtown Dallas. But we serve the greater Texas area and about 21 other states currently.
Okay, so you're nationwide, you're doing projects.
We are. We're not licensed in all 50 states. I'm not purposely chasing work in South Dakota. Happy to work there if the right opportunity lends itself. Most of our expansion has been through the franchise work that we do, um, working with corporate franchises that are nationwide, and as they expanded new territories, they will bring us along with them. But yeah, about 21 states total right now.
So that makes sense. As more projects were coming through the channels you already had, you were getting licensed in those states?
That's correct.
Okay, makes sense. So where do you guys, since we're on this topic, where does your firm start in the construction process?
Gosh, I get phone calls every couple months from someone with a dream, and they say, "I want to build a thing," whether or not that's from a strip mall to a coffee shop. And we have those conversations, and I ask them, "Okay, well, do you have an architect? Do you have a GC? Who are you working with?" And it's so funny. I get this comment so frequently is, "Well, I don't have any of those things, and I don't really know where to start, but I know engineers know things." So I typed in engineer near me. You guys came up. I called you. You're the first person to actually pick up your phone or call me back. So here we are. And that's always really fun because then we get to help build the teams and make referrals and make recommendations, which is really big for how we try to grow our name in the market. So it can be anything from that to an architect who's getting busy and his current MEP or structural or aquatics partners either are backlogged or for whatever reason want to explore new opportunities. And it can be everything in between. We get phone calls from mechanical contractors who got brought onto a job from a client who didn't know they needed engineering drawings, and the contractor got brought in and, oh, you actually do need a drawing from an engineer. So the mechanical contractor will then reach out and have us help them create a set of drawings for a permit. So our work comes from a lot of different places, but again, it can be brought in from the individual to the architect to the design build GC on bigger projects to various subcontractor trades, and that's kind of a fun aspect. So we really never know who's going to call us next.
That's great. So you can really start at any part of the process, but mainly are you communicating with the owner or who's going to be the owner of the business or the building?
Maybe on some instances of some smaller projects, like with the local restaurants or the coffee shops or the tenant finish out in the strip center. On the larger projects, we're typically dealing directly with the architects. The architect's going to be hired by the developer or the owner or maybe the GC. So project dependent, but I would say most of our projects we do uh, directly contract with the architect, but we will always push to have communication with the owner. We're happy to work whatever makes most sense for whoever's going to write our check. But I always tell people, hey, look, if you don't want to play middleman, I'm happy to either contract with or have direct communication with anyone. And if it's the developer or it's the owner and they have questions, rather than pass that through the architect, we're happy to have that direct line of communication because it speeds things along.
Yeah, and going back to what you said earlier, you're building for the end user experience, right? So it makes sense to communicate with as many people as possible within the project, especially the visionary, the person that wants to build it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and some people think that muddies the water to have too many different people talking to different folks. I think the opposite is true. I think that as we play the telephone game and one person tells one person one thing who tells the next person tells the next person, that just opens the likelihood for something to be missed. So the more we can get involved and the more people lean on us to have those conversations, I feel like it only helps the projects go by more smoothly.
Yeah, I like that. We've talked a lot on these episodes of this show about communication. That's the biggest theme that we've had of where things can improve, where things need to be focused on is communication in all different parts of the industry. And so that's very important and obviously a topic that comes up a lot. So that's pretty cool that you just lightly touched on it there.
Yeah, it really is the biggest thing. It, everything in construction is better done yesterday. And especially when it comes to the last 10% of a project. And that doesn't matter if it's actually the construction last 10% or the last 10% of coordination for engineering. Just for whatever reason, that last little bit is always the most challenging to get through. And the communication aspect of it and being responsive and the cards on the table and trying to get ahead of things, that's where that's where the differentiation happens. So if we know as we're approaching those timelines, again, whether through construction administration, they're getting close to getting their final permit, or if it's through the last little bit of the engineering side, that's where we really know, hey, there's going to be some extra phone calls, meetings. This is where we need to buckle down and really be transparent on what's going on.
Okay, and then are there any other big challenges that you face as an engineering firm working in construction?
Sure. I mean, there's lots of challenges. I think another big challenge is the expectations to reduce cost as much as possible. And this helps with new technology, whether it be more efficient HVAC units, better building materials, just more efficient equipment in general. There's always ways that we can value engineer. I think that there's a very careful dance behind over engineering, and you can always tinker. You can always make something better. But as you continue to tinker and try to find a more either economical or streamlined solution, you're also spending time doing that. And time is money. And the more time that you spend doing that, it's less time that the doors are actually open. So that kind of ties back to the communication aspect of it is understanding what's the budget up front, both in terms of time and construction costs. And then how much of that on the back end do people want us to do? And how much of that do they want to pay us to do, right? Because that's not free either. And, we're always going to pick the most economical solution up front. But again, with anything engineering, you can always continue to tinker. You can always refine. But at some point, good enough is good enough. But if you continue to spend time spinning wheels or reevaluating something that's already been evaluated, there there are diminishing returns to a certain degree. So just having those expectations, but yeah, it is a big challenge to how do we make sure that something is not only reliable in the terms of something like an HVAC system. If an HVAC system fails in a strip center in a clothing store, generally nobody's going to get hurt. They might be uncomfortable, but if your HVAC doesn't work properly, it's an inconvenience. Structurally, it becomes much more critical. So we're talking about factor of safety, just safety of human life in general. So the structural design becomes a little bit more of a dance when someone wants to, hey, can we reduce this from a 12-inch beam to a 10-inch beam? Maybe not. It's not as easy as, well, yeah, we can pull off a couple tons on the HVAC and you might have a couple warm days in late August, but otherwise you'll be fine. The structural engineering is sometimes a more challenging conversation when we look at too much value engineering.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Safety's big in construction, and I would imagine structural engineering is very very involved with that.
Certainly.
So you did mention the last 10% of the project, and I'm assuming that you're involved at that point. How long of the process are you still involved in, all the way to the end?
It's project dependent. There are some times where we will have monthly site visits through construction. If it's a large multifamily development that's going to be 18 to 20 months of construction, the client may want periodic check-ins. And it's everything from formalized punch lists to final walks. Sometimes it's just having someone there to, yep, everything looks like it's going okay. So we can take that all the way through final certificate of occupancy.
Okay. And then on your perspective, where are you seeing the most projects getting delayed, or at what point, or what is happening where it's these big delays are happening?
Through construction, it has to do a lot with the coordination of different disciplines. And this is maybe a good segue into the technology piece. It's not new from the instance that it didn't come out this year, but new in the grand scheme of things, the construction industry, the ability to 3D model everything. So your HVAC trade, your electrical trade, your plumbing, your structural, your architectural features with certain fur downs and millwork, the ability to design all of that in a software like Revit, where everything can be 3D modeled and coordinated, that alleviates a lot of those coordination issues downstream. 10 years ago, when that wasn't mainstream, or probably even less than that, you draw everything on paper in 2D lines, and whether or not it was AutoCAD or some people, I still know architects who draw on pen and paper, but um, you don't get an appreciation for things like beam depths and millwork elevations. So when you're trying to size ductwork and show approximate locations of duct run and how does that coordinate with plumbing, right? If plumbing's on a separate page and that doesn't coordinate with MEP on some of these more complex, or mechanical on some of these more complex systems, you could end up with pipe and ductwork trying to occupy the same space. And if that isn't thought about ahead of time, it's a lot easier to coordinate. It's a lot more, excuse me, it's a lot more difficult to coordinate that in 2D when you're trying to, okay, well, this is the size of this ductwork and I'm going to draw this and we're going to mention that. How do we carry that chase through a project? So a lot of the construction delays really come when you actually start installing your MEP systems. Oh, well, this beam, this isn't a truss, this is actually a beam. And things like that should be figured out, but can we go below the beam? Is it a wood frame project? Can we notch it out to run some pipe through here? How much of a notch is too much? So it's a lot of the trade coordination items once you actually get there and, oh no, these two pieces of pipe run into each other. What do we do? That's a lot of that hang up. That's not necessarily in the final 10%, but that is a lot of the coordination questions that we get on projects that may not utilize some of the more effective or efficient technology that we have available today.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Daniel, we'll go ahead and we'll cut to a really quick commercial break, and then we will be right back to talk about technology and innovation.
Sounds good?
Every job site comes with pressure. Deadlines stacking, crews moving, jobs depending on you. But behind the scenes, everything slows down. Quotes and bids, calls, service tickets, even admin work stacks up. With high-level talent, you can hire remote staff to fill the traditional office positions at half the cost, so your team can focus on what actually makes money. Scale your operation without scaling your overhead. High-level talent. Visit highleveltalent.com today to learn more.
And we're back to our episode of Breaking Ground with Daniel McCaulley. He is the founder and principal of Ultimus Engineering. Daniel, again, thanks for joining us. And we'll jump right into the theme of the show, innovation. And I know a lot of that comes with technology. So we'll start there. How has technology been changing engineering over the course of your career?
Yeah, it's been incredible over the course of the career, not just in the last 5 years that I've been running this company, but really the ability to, I think, visualize in a more true form the things that we build. And that's a very generic statement. And that's again everything from oil and gas tools to tennis shoes to cars to buildings and everything in between. The ability for someone to take something in their brain and formalize it in a way that other people can see and appreciate has been incredible. And it starts again, it's everything from the 3D modeling for general manufacturing, to the incredible rendering packages that are available today, so people can truly appreciate again things like whether it be exotic car design or even consumer products. The ability for people to take that vision and portray it in a way that other people can understand has been immense. And that also trickles down into engineering as well. And we touched on it briefly before the break, but the ability to fully 3D coordinate and model these systems that we're building, buildings are not getting less complex. They're getting very complex. And as architects get more and more creative and as our building materials get better, it only allows the architects to be more and more creative, which pushes the envelope of engineering. And there's a lot of cases where we have to be very creative with our engineering and solving these complex challenges that architects put before us, and we're excited and we love doing that. But the ability to create these visual models that make sure everything is well coordinated, so we don't end up with construction issues later. Um, Again, as projects get more complex, we'll talk about the structural engineering aspect of it. The software that allows us to run tens or hundreds of thousands of computations simultaneously rather than doing everything on pen and paper allows for projects to get done much quicker and be much more accurate, and more complex, and just ultimately have more fun as we embrace the new technology and new softwares that are available.
And so ultimately, is that saving your company money as well
It's
through the
saving
process?
it is. It's saving us money. I mean, time is certainly money. But the money that, you know, it's basically it's saving money, but it's also allowing us to make more money because we can do more projects and help more people at the end of the day. So rather than spending 20 hours doing hand calculations, we can spend 5 hours and create a model. And we always have to validate those calculations and do a sanity check and make sure it makes sense. But once you trust a process and trust the simulation, you understand that it's going to be correct. Um, that allows us to be more efficient with our time. And then, like we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, spending more time maybe doing some value engineering. We only have 20 hours on a project. We're going to spend 20 hours doing calculations. You don't have a lot of time to tweak it and make it better. But if we can then do two or three or four iterations in that same amount of time, then that ultimately saves the client money, which is equally important.
So how does that affect you if you're saving the client money? Where does that come into play for you? I mean, obviously you look good, but is there any other advantage?
It's It makes the project go smoother. I mean, everybody likes to save money. Nobody wants to spend more money than they absolutely have to. Even the nicest of projects were $1,000 plus a square foot on a retail finish out, right? It's okay. Well, we'll spend $1,000, but if we don't have to spend $2,000, we'd rather not. So it helps just build relationships. It helps build trust, and those are the clients that then come back and give us more work. So if the clients trust us and understand that we are going to put the best product forward, we're going to be responsive. We're going to spend the extra time that we have budgeted to run a couple extra iterations and make sure that something is going to be as efficient as possible. Then that is ultimately new projects and more work and new opportunities to tackle new challenges, which all engineers like solving a challenge. So I think that's where it ultimately circles back to us. Um,
Okay. And then really, I mean, we've talked about technology. Where have you seen it, whether it's in technology or outside of that, in construction itself, where have you seen the biggest innovations in the past few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about this thing called AI, right? That's the topic of every conversation these days, and that is growing so exponentially. It's hard to even know what technology is like today that wasn't here yesterday. Um, the ability to, I think the QA/QC is going to be the biggest benefit that that provides. The ability for the image recognition as well as language models to make sure.
What's QA/QC?
I'm sorry, quality assurance, quality control.
Okay.
So it's essentially the quality control checks from an engineering side, from an architecture side. It's making sure that addresses are correct. It's making sure that code compliance is correct. If you list, yeah, this is 2021 NEC, while that city uses 2023 NEC, but we don't think to go back and check on that, that's something that shows up in a permit review. It's not necessarily critical to the function of the project. There's probably nothing wrong with what we designed. But at the end of the day, it's things that slow the project down. But with these language models and the ability to pull in a lot of information and utilize some of the built-in automation tools within Revit, for example, if we pull in a project address, then we can have AI in the background double checking those things. So we formulate title blocks that say, hey, this is the code year that we're referencing. Double check and see what the city of Plano is currently using for their electrical code, for their plumbing code, for their mechanical code. And things like that get double checked and updated automatically, which again saves us time because we're not going back and re-reviewing. Again, working in 21 states, I couldn't possibly have every city in all 21 states memorized on their current code. So we have to check those every time. But
And how would you check those in the past before AI?
sure, you go to the city website and you look up their building code division and you read their document and say, yep, the city of Plano is on 2024 IECC. Okay, great. And then we got to fill all that in. So it's checking the city's websites on what their current building codes are. You can call them, you can check their website. There's no way to do it. And if you're only working in a couple of cities, but they don't always tell you, hey, by the way, on August 1st, we're updating to 2024 from 2021. So we've had some projects that this was this happened last year, I think it was. The city of Plano updated from 21 to 2024. Well, when we submitted drawings, they were submitted under 2021 code. Drawings took about 3 or 4 weeks to get through the system. By the time the plan reviewer got it, they had switched to 2024. So we had to go back and make all of those code updates. We said, well, listen, we got in before the deadline. They said, well, we didn't review it. So it was fine. It is what it is. And that wouldn't have been solved in this instance. But that was one case where,
Is that something that now AI would update you and say, "Hey, by the way, there's a change coming in 3 weeks."
um, maybe, maybe it kind of depends on how forward looking and if you have things in the background that are constantly doing research. And something like that would be hard to say because it doesn't always take that long to get through the permitting office. So that was just kind of a very unique, very specialized circumstance where code years changed based on adaptation. where we kind of missed it on one side or the other. But that's just one example. Another thing would be is if there's specific details or specific notes that you always want to make sure are covered. For example, if you're designing a commercial kitchen, there are certain aspects that should be labeled and commented and certain equipment that should be considered. Well, if your project type is listed as a commercial kitchen and you don't have those details, there's automated checking that can say, hey, you have marked this as a commercial kitchen. Based on the notes in these plans, you don't have these specific notes, or you're using the wrong template altogether. You should probably double check this before you send it out. And that rabbit hole can go very deep. The industry is still at its infancy on how much that's utilized, how much you trust it, right? 'Cause you can't, it's not to the point where we can trust that blindly. So you don't just want to, hey, everything's fine, let's just send it, right? Because you're going to do some internal checks. But we're starting to dip our toe into how do we leverage some of these automation tools that help speed things along when it comes to, again, title blocks, client addresses, code years, general notes, things like that. It's not to the point where we would say, hey, do this engineering for me. We don't need engineers anymore. I don't see that going away. I think that we will always have professional engineers doing the design. But there's some of the things that help speed up the back end or speed up anything repetitive. If you have to do something more than 2 or 3 times, you need to find a way to automate that. Just plain and simple, whether or not it's emails, and that's everything from drafting techniques to sending follow-ups on accounts receivable. If it's something that you're doing more than 2 or 3 times and you're not finding a way to automate it, you're wasting time.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I think what I've started to do, even with this podcast, is just kind of looking at the things that I'm repetitively doing, like you were just explaining. And so, if you look at your day as a business owner or as a business operator, and you just kind of go down, or even an employee, you just kind of go down what you're com- you know, uh, continuously, repetitively doing, then you can start to really do your research and start to try to use AI as a tool. But that's important. We need to emphasize it's a tool. It's not something that can completely take over, at least not something right now that can completely take over. And so, one of the main things that I like to try to get across is, hey, use it as a tool, but still be the human eyes on before you deliver that, or before, wherever it's going, whether it's an email or something as simple as a spreadsheet. Um, just make sure that you're getting human eyes on it, because it does what they say, hallucinate or
Sure.
put the wrong thing.
Mhm.
I know, I'll build a thumbnail, and then I'll put some things together, and I'll say, hey, duplicate this, and it'll come out and it'll make its own logos like Ultimus Engineering. I'll throw the logo on there, and it'll just create its own logo
Yeah,
for your company.
sure.
And so you have to just pay attention and make sure that everything's going right. But it is, I mean, it's not something to be scared of. It's just something that you have to kind of play around with and see where it works for you and your company.
That's right. They say that AI now has the ability of a master's degree or even a doctorate degree on how intelligent it can be, which is fine. But I would take that and I would treat it like an intern. Treat it like an intern who's maybe had an internship or two or knows something. So you're gonna trust them to do some things, and it's probably gonna be right. But you're not going to take that as gospel. You're not just going to send that off to a client. You're going to review it. You're going to ask questions. You're going to have it massage it a little bit. And that's everything from helping you write emails to pulling inventory reports to, um, coming up with, like you said, marketing content. Uh, I was really impressed about probably 6 months ago, 8 months ago. I started to appreciate the fact that the image generation from AI figured out how to make thumbs look good. It was just kind of funny. A year ago, hey, I'm going to use AI to create a picture of a person, and they've got like 87 teeth, or their thumb is weird squiggles. It's like they're figuring it out. And it'll only be a matter of time before some of these things, the repetitive tasks, we start to trust more. But I think that's a good way to think about it, right? If you're going to use AI, trust it like you would an intern, double check it, make sure it's right. the cool thing about AI is if you bring it in a way that you're really trying to embed that within your organization, it's coachable, it's trainable, it's customizable to what you're trying to do. And the more you teach it, the more you correct it, just like an intern, it will learn. And the great thing about it, unlike interns, you only have to tell it once, sometimes twice, depending on how complex the task is. But if you tell it, hey, at the end of every sentence, I want you to be excited and I want you to put an exclamation point at the end of every sentence you send back to me, it'll do that. And that's a very crude oversimplification. I'm not saying everyone should use AI just to put exclamation points at the end of sentences, but from the standpoint of you can teach AI to be what you want it to be. So it's not immediately plug and play from day one unless you hire a consultant and they develop something for you. But anybody trying to implement AI into your business, your daily life for personal management or whatever, it's coachable, it's trainable. Tell it what you want and it'll make the right adjustments to learn. But that's the cool thing is it is learning. It's a learning model where it will develop and customize itself to you. The way my chat GPT talks to me is not the same way it talks to my wife. It's not the same way it talks to my admin. It's not the same way it talks to other engineers. And I've seen its responses and it's really fascinating. It's kind of like a good friend or someone you spend a lot of time with. Over time, you and their mannerisms start to become similar. You think about your best friend. You probably have very similar mannerisms. Is it because you're the same person? No. Did all of those mannerisms match up from day one? No, but you adopted some things from them and they adopted some things for you and you grow together. And that's kind of like AI. It will adopt itself to you and your needs and the way that you talk and the way you like to be talked to. And it's really fascinating how it has the ability to do that, but it's going to make businesses more efficient for sure.
Yeah, and that's great. And so what we're gonna do is go ahead and start wrapping up the show here. But what I want to say is at the end of each show, I usually give a little bit of time for the guests to speak on anything. So whether it's for your company, you want to promote something, or if it's just general knowledge that you want to get out there, or just some positive light, then you can do so. And so if you got something for us, now's the time.
Yeah. Well, really open-ended question. Talk about anything. Yeah, again, this is one thing that we really try to do. I try to do personally, get my family involved with. And I mentioned it in the mission statement, but is live outside of yourself. Don't live outside of your means. This is not a financial recommendation to go spend money you don't have, but see that there are other people out there that are in need. And whether or not that's donating time or donating money or just giving a friendly wave, the guy on the street corner, if you don't have money or you don't have food in your car, even a smile and a wave and, hey, sorry, I don't have anything. Hope your day gets better, right? It's just be a light in the world. And I think that will help a lot of different things. And so you can do that in a variety of different ways. It's everything from holding the door from someone in an office building to donating your time at the soup kitchen to providing some way to give back charitably as an organization or through your organization. Ask your organization to donate to charities that you care about. There's ways to be a light in this world. And I think the more of us exude that light and bring light to dark places, and again, that doesn't have to be in bad parts of the world. That can be your elderly neighbor who you're like, you know what? They're always out there Saturday mornings mowing their lawn. Maybe I'll go pick up their leaf trimmings for them or something. Just anything, right? So that's kind of what I would say is my unsolicited advice to just anyone listening is find some way to be light for someone else this week. You don't have to do it daily. Just sprinkle that in. And if we all do that, I think it'll be a better place.
Yeah, and that's very well put. And like you said, just the simplest gesture, even a smile, just passing someone, that's, you're spreading that light. And then more things are going to come from it. Maybe better AI, maybe better innovation, right? So
Sure.
like all of these things can stem from people having good days, good experiences with other people. And yeah, so that's well said and well put. So that'll do it for us here for this episode of Breaking Ground. And I really appreciate you joining us, Daniel. It's been a great chat.
It was a pleasure, Dagan. Thanks for having me.
All right, and we'll see you guys next time on Breaking Ground.
Every job site comes with pressure. Deadline stacking, crews moving, jobs depending on you. But behind the scenes, everything slows down. Quotes and bids, calls, service tickets, even admin work stacks up. With high-level talent, you can hire remote staff to fill the traditional office positions at half the cost, so your team can focus on what actually makes money. Scale your operation without scaling your overhead. High-level talent. Visit highleveltalent.com today to learn more.